Okay, here we are. So let's look now, chapter 2. Let's look at what I have listed as Mishnah 17, Rabbi Yossi. Right, one of the disciples of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We should just for a half a second, if we look backwards, he had 5 disciples and he praised each one of them. So Rabbi Yossi HaKohen is called Chassid. Right? He's called a Chassid, which means a very pious person. A saintly man is the translation I have. Let's see if some of the things that he says help us understand that, or maybe we should read some of what he says in light of that particular quality that he was singled out for having. So Mishnah 17, Rabbi Yossi says, who's going to read for us the basic kind of translation that we have, and then we'll see what Rabbi Shapiro can add to it. Okay, Geraldine, go.
Rabbi Yossi taught, the property of others should be as precious to you as your own. Perfect yourself in the study of Torah. It will not come to you by inheritance. Let all your deeds be for heaven's sake.
Right. Okay, so these are 3 things. Again, that's the kind of common format that we've seen many, many, many times. So any other significant translation contributions? Craig?
Yeah, Rabbi Hertz says mostly the same thing, except for the second clause, he says, qualify thyself for the study of Torah.
Okay. So, and any other before we get to the Shapiro translation? No? Okay. So the first one is let your fellow person's, the other person's money or property or assets be as dear to you as your own. The second one is, we've gotten already a couple of translations, perfect yourself or qualify yourself to study Torah, because it is not going to be yours by inheritance. And the third is, let everything that you do be for the sake of heaven, right? And in the name of heaven, l'shem shamayim. Okay, so and now our Rabbi Shapiro experts. What do we got? Anything interesting to rub against the translations that we have already heard? Yes, Josie.
His line, the third line is, seek out wisdom for yourself and don't rely on inherited truth. That sounds to me almost like challenge whatever it is you've been taught. Am I misinterpreting that?
Well, so can you read the whole thing though, please?
Yeah, Rabbi Yossi teaches, protect another's possessions as you would your own. Seek out wisdom for yourself and don't rely on inherited truth. Do all you do for the sake of heaven.
Okay, so the last one is pretty standard, pretty much overlaps what we've had, but the first 2 are a little are different. The first one, he translates protect somebody else's money. The Hebrew is, let the money of your friend be as dear to you, chaviv, as your own. But he translates that into practical terms. Because your money is so dear to you, you protect it. You do things to make sure that you don't lose it. So he's giving you a kind of a practical interpretive translation there. And the middle one is significantly different, right? Okay, now let's go. Let's add our own layer of commentary. Let's start though, with your permission. Let's start with the first of the phrases. What does it mean to say that somebody else's assets or money should be as dear to you as your own?
I think that's a very high standard that most people would have to struggle with.
Can you think of examples?
Well, he uses the word possessions, not money.
Okay, a broader term.
I would say, does that mean I should worry when my neighbor fails to pick up her package from the countertop with her name on it? That I should get involved?
Okay, so and his answer is yes, you should protect it, right? Because otherwise, who knows what's going to happen to it.
Right.
Okay, Jen, you wanted to say something. The first thing Rabbi Yossi said is unmute yourself. No, I can't hear you. No,
Can you hear me?
now I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, for some reason my mic isn't working. That's lovely. Okay. I do think we do this. I mean, we take in packages for our neighbors, right? I mean, and where I am, I have all my houses are close together, right? My house is very close to the next one, and we share a driveway and we share backyards, and we both get a million packages online. We all take care of each other as far as that goes. I think at your job, right, when people lose a watch or an earring or something, we all like pick it up and bring it someplace where it can be retrieved. So we worry about our friends who make stupid investments. So I do think in a lot of ways we do this. We do this naturally. At least it might be harder when it's somebody you don't know or you work with and you don't like. But I think in general we do this kind of thing.
Okay, good. So 1 out of 3 ain't bad. Good. Yeah, Sarita.
So ours is also, and it said, let the property rather than money. And I was thinking about, when you borrow something from somebody else, use it and don't mess it up, return it to the other person in the condition that you got it. So that's one thing about, you're taking care of someone else's property. And then I was thinking, the idea of letting someone else's money be as dear to you, if you, if you're planning something with somebody else, right? And be mindful of how much you're asking somebody else to spend, for instance, or don't look at somebody else and say, oh my God, they should spend some more and make, their property look better because they may not have the money. So there are ways that you can, so you could be mindful of other people's either property or money.
Right. This phrase should remind us a tiny bit of love your neighbor as yourself, right? And the word that's being used here is chaviv, as I said, which means dear, precious. So it's not just a practical thing, but maybe also, how do you think about other people's property or assets vis-a-vis your own? So we have, let's say a report here that we're doing pretty good when it comes to returning or looking after a package or something like that. And then, how do we actually think about what we see about what other people do for spending their money, or how we advise them, or what we expect of them to do. So those are all, that's a little bit more tricky kind of question. Hold on a second. Okay, good, done. Merle.
Yeah, I had it's not on the money thing, it's more on the possession, but I had an experience yesterday. I'm in a small apartment building. There are only 3 of us, and we share a little parking lot. So I have everybody has their regular spot. So I pulled in, and it was just before it was going to pour at about 5 or 5:30, so 6 o'clock. And my neighbor's car was sitting next to me, and all the windows were down.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I was picking up my phone, to text him or call him and say, all your windows are down. And he was rushing out of the house to go someplace, but he remembered that his windows were down also, and he raised them up and he went where he was going. But
good for you. All right, so you did it. That's a good story. That's a good example.
It is like do unto others. You know, it's that golden rule thing.
Geraldine,
I'm a teacher, and the first day of school, I would always say to the children, you're now part, my school is Yantakla school. And I always say, now you're part of my Yantakla family. And I would treat, it would be my duty and obligation to treat those children as if they were mine. And I would also expect a physician to treat me as his patient, as if I were part of his family or part of his group as well.
so you're talking about specifically professional kinds of duties and approaches to things.
Mhm.
But when we're talking about property and stuff, that's, transcends anybody's particular, responsibility or expertise for how they're supposed to do their own particular job. Let me ask how we feel about, let's say, an institution's property, or, like the school. I thought that's where you were going to be going. Like, what do you teach children about, respecting the property of the
correct.
school, of the yard, the shul?
Yes.
What does it mean to take care of the shul's stuff? Let's translate it as stuff,
Okay.
but assets or anything like that. What about the country? What about the expenses that go toward upkeep of whatever there is? How well do we think that we're conscious about factoring that into our calculations? An example that comes to mind now. It's not that long after Hurricane Ida. Insurance payments. How do we approach what it means to have somebody else pay for things? Do we care? Do we think about that? Everybody on this screen is qualified so far as a chassid, just like Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Everybody here is great, but I think that all of us have heard or been aware of people going, what's the difference? It's just coming out of the the company that and so on. They're just going to pay for it or something like that. And this, I think, raises that kind of question also. And there's a pushback in that kind of discussion, because we really don't respect necessarily the accumulated wealth. And that could be another translation, wealth. Wealth is like a real positive, not just property or stuff. Let the other person's wealth be as dear to you as your wealth. Right now, of course, wealth, we've got a very little wealth, but wealth sounds like a lot. And we don't always respect how other people accumulate their wealth. So we don't think that they necessarily have, the right to expect us to, to be as responsible for their payment out of their wealth as we are for us, because we, after all, have to be a little more careful. Jen?
I'm not sure what you meant by the insurance. And do you mean like, are you talking about insurance fraud or?
Yeah.
Like what? Okay. And then for the wealthy, do you mean like, will I care as much about somebody's second helicopter? I mean,
Well,
probably,
where you have some impact on the use of that helicopter.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I wouldn't really have any, I don't wish them ill necessarily. I don't think they need a second helicopter. But yeah, I don't know if I'm trying to think of a situation where I would personally have anything to say about the super wealthy doing whatever. Like, I feel like I don't even have any power there. I just want you to pay more taxes. So I don't know I'm not sure what to think about that, the question you're asking, because I feel like it's so out of my ability to do anything about it beyond advocate for fair taxes.
Okay. Well, let's see if other people can, it speaks more for other people. So, Sarita.
I thought where you were going with your comments was that when, say, Ida comes, and so the government has a program of helping people to rebuild. And how do we feel about that? Do we feel like, oh, why should I pay for that person to rebuild their home? I thought that's where you were going. And of course, that's a tricky question because we know that people are living in areas that are going to get devastated time and time again. Overall, I'm very comfortable with the government helping out. I think we should. I mean, that's one, I think that is an important role for government. But I thought that you were saying is there are people who would say no, under no circumstances should the government help that out. That was totally that other person's personal responsibility. If their home is wrecked, then that's up to them. And I don't agree with that. So, I mean, that's where I thought, that's what I thought you were talking about with insurance.
That's not what I was saying.
Okay.
It's my impression that people feel comfortable taking extra stuff or, extra payments from organizations that they feel that organization can afford it. I think that they excuse it as being, well, they can afford it, so it's okay. It's it's not that big a deal. Let's bring it down to very, very, very old-fashioned terms. Returning extra change.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, yeah, Merle, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say returning extra change. It's a supermarket. It probably happens to all of us once a month at least. You get extra change. They forgot to ring something. You didn't see something in the bottom of your cart. And, I would think, well, I think the supermarket can afford it. And yet I can't not do the right thing when I consider the right thing because it would be stealing. So I'm not as concerned about their money, but I'm not going to steal something.
Right, you've got the hand icon up on your screen for me. So if it's
That was me. Okay.
yeah, and it gets to become like a vicious cycle. We know that I think I know that, for instance, the supermarkets in the ghetto have higher prices than in other neighborhoods, because how can they afford operating there? They factor in the fact that they're going to have so much stealing and damage. So they pass on the cost. The reason they can afford it is they passed on the cost to these poor people who are stressing over trying to pay for a food, for a grocery bill. So it becomes a vicious cycle. The less you respect somebody else's property, the more that property, if you ever need it, is going to cost you. And so there's a kind of a mutual aid message that also comes out of this. Josie.
Yeah, I'm reminded of many years ago, I took a cab to Shomrei and there was $100 in cash on the back seat and $20 bills. And I thought,
And you didn't call me?
if I give it to the cab driver, what are the chances that he's going to turn it in to the company? I can't take it. So what I ended up doing was taking the money and sending it to Hadassah to make my granddaughter a lifetime member. They never put it through. We've been arguing with them for years. But it's like, what do you do? It's not yours.
Yeah, so those are good questions, and I don't know necessarily what the final bottom line decision would be on that particular case, but in general, the idea of, would you let go of that money if you lost it? In other words, when we return lost objects, one of the rules of thumb that the Talmud discusses ad infinitum is, would the person who lost it still expect that it will be returned? Right? If I drop a $10 bill on the ground, then forget the 100. And then I discover it an hour later when I reach into it to pay for my coffee, and I'm going to be really, really upset that I lost it, but it's gone, right? I know it's gone, right? So, which is different than my wallet, right? My wallet has my ID in it. It's got, then I'm afraid people, is there going to be credit card, stealing and so on, but it's returnable. It's got my name in it. It's got my address in it. It's got some, some identifiable, quality that makes the return possible. A $10 bill, my $10 bill usually looks the same as your $10 bill. It depends on how much work I put into making it, look good. So the $100, when it's just plain, generic cash, it's a very, very difficult question. Now in a cab, you have the question of, do they have actually records of who they, what kind of cab is it? Is it a cab that just goes around picking up people? Is it a cab that got ordered so they actually have a record of who the last person was? So that gets really complicated. And then you got another Talmudic discussion. How much exertion do you actually have to put into this? If it's going to cost you $200 to return $100, you don't have to return the $100, right? So there's a certain realism principle and that kicks in as well. Yeah, Jen.
If we are in Josie's situation, like
I don't think we could all fit in the cab.
I know, but like, so, okay, say I found $100 in a cab. If it's an Uber especially or something, then I know they have records.
And they have records.
Can I just if I give it to the cab driver, am I just now free of responsibility? I said, hey, I found this in your back seat. It's probably from your last ride. I'm out of it now, right? I can do that and just have no other moral responsibility for this?
Correct.
And then it's the cab driver's decision.
Right. What if you want to be obnoxious and risk getting killed, you can say to the cabbie, can you please look up your last record and call them, since the Uber, works with phone numbers and stuff, and ask them. Now, of course, who says that the last person is the one who dropped 100?
Right.
So,
I mean, but I do feel like, is it wrong for me to do that? To figure now it's in your hands? Sorry, I don't have this problem anymore.
That's not wrong at all. No. Because they have the possibility that you don't have. They have the how much we rate that possibility. Is it a 50% possibility? Is it a 1% possibility? But they have some kind of possibility, and you have no possibility of returning it to the right person. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on this particular, teaching, this first phrase? No. I'm going to add one more. This is because this is actually like a little bit of a bugaboo for me. But I think it actually applies in a way to this teaching. When we park, first of all, I think I've shared, I don't know, over this, watching television watching more television this year than my entire life. One of the things that I've noticed is that in all TV shows, the person, when they drive the car and they get to their destination, they always find a parking spot immediately, right? So, no matter how realistic the show is, that's the one thing that drives me nuts, because that doesn't happen to me. Although actually this past week, it did. We were driving someplace and we were just going to make it to the minute, and we found a parking spot right in front of where we had to go. And I said to Zelda, I'm in a movie. I'm in a TV show. Here it is. I can't believe it that we just there's the parking spot. But the idea, the aggravation, the time, the fact that then you give up and you go, if you're in the city, for instance, you got to go park in some parking lot that's going to cost you $5,000, a minute. And then, people park and they're very, very careful. Chaviv, their property is very precious to them. So their car, for instance, is very precious to them. So they will park with 4 feet in front of them open space and 3 feet in front of them behind, because they don't want to get scratched and they don't want to get, damaged. And as a result, there's one less parking spot for the next, desperate person who's going to try to, get to where they have to go, visit a friend or go to the store or whatever. It doesn't matter. Go to the doctor. So in that particular case, I think that that's actually, it's a stretch to it, but to think about what the other person's outlay would have to be and put yourself in that position and say, for me, it would be so precious to have this parking spot, right now. And I get, 3/4 of a car spot over here and half a car spot over there and so on. Whether a person, could actually think about that. I think Rabbi Yossi Cohen would say, give it a little thought to it next time. See if you can park, don't scratch your car up, and certainly don't scratch the other cars up. But see if you can make space for everybody. Right? So, all right. We only have a couple of minutes, but let's go to the next phrase, and we'll hopefully continue next time. But let's start. So the two translations that the translations that we have in the regular kind of translation that tries to be pretty straightforward are either qualify yourself, or I think somebody had perfect yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Perfect yourself. So Geraldine, read it one more time, what you have.
Perfect yourself in the study of Torah. It will not come to you by inheritance.
Okay, so that's all translations are interpretive. Whether it's qualify yourself. So perfect yourself in the study of Torah is a little bit inexact, because the preposition is not in the study of Torah, but in order to study Torah. Lilmod, to study, not bilimud haTorah, not in the study of Torah, but lilmod, to study. So perfect yourself to study Torah. So I want to, just leave us with this for next time. This is a at least in this translation, then we'll get to the Shapiro again next time. This is a state. It's not the study of Torah that he's talking about. He's talking about getting into the study of Torah. What kind of process, or what kind of things do we have to do or feel, or what does it mean to qualify? My translation, qualify yourself for the study of Torah. So what would that mean? So we'll deal with that hopefully next time. Okay. Take care. Have a great week.
Yashikoach.
Thank you.
Yashikar.